How do you do? I am Dr. John Yates. For this simple introductory talk on time, I will provide literature references in my blog at ttjohn and on Facebook. Both addresses are given in the YouTube note for this blog. This is in order to save you from any needless note-taking. Since the work of MacTaggart in 1908, it has been considered by many that there are two descriptions of time, the A series and the B series. Very briefly, we can consider time in a dynamic or tensed way as being representative of flux and transiency. Thus, events are represented as being past, present and future, with these three continually changing with time. This has been called the A series. Alternatively, these same events, which are continually changing with respect to their pastness, presentness or futurity, can be laid out in a permanent order. This is a static or tenseless way of considering time, used for example by so-called eternalists, in which the history of the world is viewed in a godlike manner. This has been called the B series. Einstein had made it clear that he could not understand the now or present, hence the A series I suppose, and Carnap suggested that it could therefore be left to the psychologists. In fact, the present options on the now suggest that it may be called Alex, which is short for Alexandrov present, a thin layer of space-time approximately 300,000 kilometres long. Two facts come to mind immediately. The first is, why are we laid down that time has only two important separate aspects and not just a number of important aspects, perhaps a large number of important aspects? Probably we should continue to bear this fact in mind. The second fact is that these two important aspects of time, which should be make it clear that we should not be fudging things by pretending time does not exist, as MacTaggart did in a way that is often called incoherent by philosophers. Nor should we ignore completely one or the other of these two important aspects. So when a physicist talks about time, it should be pointed out that MacTaggart had reached his result well before my friend de Broglie's wave-particle duality had been somewhat grudgingly accepted, perhaps as a kludge, as nobody had wanted to deny the existence of particles or of quantum theory. Effectively, most physicists are eternalists who look on the B series alone as making sense. To many people, this simply implies Minkowski space-time or something of that kind. Philosophers, psychologists and a few physicists often appreciate the A series, which can deeply embed the past, the present and the future together with the now, as they require in their lucubrations. I list the tenses and the D tenses in the written notes. You'll see there are quite a lot of them. I will mention the present position in neuroscience, but basically only mention it to the extent that it is required for present day thought on time. Lahar pointed out in 2003, contemporary neuroscience finds itself in a state of serious crisis. For the deeper we probe into the workings of the mind, the further we seem to get from the eternal ultimate goal of obtaining a neurophysiological account of the mechanism of conscious experience. I began my studies in time whilst reading Kohler and Wertheimer. Nowadays, I am certainly not convinced by all that Lahar says, but for the general scientific reader, Pavlovsky seems to give a good account, and Pavlovsky also refers to other approaches such as the global workspace approach. O'Regan has done a PowerPoint largely in French, and one can look at Dorozny's futurist ideas and see what might come out of that. Roughly speaking, Lahar is in fact a representationalist who carefully takes the view that the conscious perception of the mind, of the world, shall we say, is actually an internal replica of the world, of the mind, of the beholder. And there's a lot of problems with that idea, but Lahar provides a mildly convincing series of cartoons to explain it. And it's one of the best things we have at the moment, which is not saying much. There is no reason why we cannot, for the moment, use Lahar's idea, or something like it, as it can provide useful ideas on the subject of time, even if this requires a willing suspension of our disbelief, as J.K. Chesterton might have said about certain things. We can reasonably assume that this can produce a sort of bubble, which we could require for the MBI, many bubble interpretation, which can then maybe be followed with our own theory. This sort of bubble will need a model, and as nothing of the kind is available in most studies of Minkowski spaces, it may well be that normal extended Newtonian physics cannot deal with it. When I say normal extended Newtonian physics, I'm including gravitation, quantum theory and all the rest of it, and of course special relativity too. Since nobody has come up with a satisfactory answer yet, with or without ordinary silicon chip computation, we may reasonably look at other methods of non-conventional computation. There are a lot of good reasons for this, which I will not give at this juncture. I have, for example, been looking at the work of Suda, Adamatsky and others, who have produced a large amount of experimental work which looks quite impressive but doesn't do anything much useful. It turns out that the slime mould for serum polycephalum can predict the places where roadways have been run, or should have been run, between major cities all over the world, not just in any one country, both now and in the past as well. That's including early Roman roads. Slime mould can also solve mazes, solve the travelling sales problem, a tough one that, and do many other things which are not readily amenable to the use of conventional digital computers. There are, of course, other detailed ideas and reasons for this kind of behaviour, some of which are known. Using Lahar's method, bubbles for animals, primitive creatures like slime mould and humans may well have some common features, such as time sensing ability. We therefore can consider videos for serum polycephalum and view them under the new method using Eulerian video magnification, EVM, which permits a more detailed scrutiny of what's going on. For example, a normal video showing a sleeping child who appears to be completely motionless can be enhanced using EVM to show the process of breathing and the pulse, which can produce measured results which lead to standards which would be required in a hospital. So we simply need to take videos of the Physarum carrying out various time-dependent paths, examine them critically with EVM, and search for any behaviour which may be anomalous without the presence of, say, time travelling. Then we simply proceed to use modern methods of synthetic biology using PCRs, geoelectrophoresis and so on, to use or even synthesise appropriate organisms. Well, then at least we're getting somewhere. We might have them travelling backwards and forwards in time at least. The previous work of Primus attempts to mathematically quantify the now in a local environment here on Earth. But primers had to use existing physics, which is mainly B series, and pretty well all B series, on problems like the duck-rabbit experiment, which illustrates the apparently mentally abnormal behaviour of humans when they see a picture which sometimes looks like a duck and sometimes looks like a rabbit. The spot and axe method for this, using the Necker cube as an example, deals with B-series physics, which seems to imply strict determinism. But now we can use live models, as mentioned above, and look out for Physarum polycephalum, for example, attempting to find the most suitable environment, which will certainly involve the best use of time. Anyone can do these experiments, and I'll be very pleased to see the results. Heather Barnett of the Slime Mold Collective, for example, does publish some slime mold work online. I'll conclude this dissertation by mentioning my recent book, Time Travel in Theory and Practice, and point out also that much of the material is being taken much further than the book. And it's in the blogs at TT John and on the Facebook group page Consciousness, Science and Time, and I can be emailed at uvscience@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.